way you're approaching this winter meetings, especially having that success?
Well, it's new because the new president of baseball operations and him meeting our staff, really for the first time today, which is pretty cool, and having a lunch with Peter and some half of our staff, I guess, were here. But other than that, I think us knowing the players already is good. Not a ton of meetings about each guy because we already know who they are. And just trying to figure out how they can get better now is mainly the conversation, instead of like trying to figure out who they once were type deal. But nothing has really changed other than that.
How is that dynamic, I guess? Is it a lot of you guys kind of catching Peter up to speed on the organization? Is it him maybe providing observations of what he's noticed as an outsider? What's that dynamic?
I think it's a combination. I think Peter is one of the brightest guys around, and obviously really smart. I've already learned a lot from him in the last couple weeks of how he sees things. I think if I gave him my take on everybody, I don't think that's fair, because I want him also to make his own opinions of people in the organization or players or whatever, and then if we can bounce ideas off of each other as far as the players and staff and that type of thing. But I think it's a lot of organic conversations.
At this time of year, there's a lot of evaluating players and processes. Do you have time to do self-evaluation, to look kind of back at the manager you were over this season and look at areas where you think that maybe you could improve?
Every day, yeah. I mean, that's part of growing, and I think it's I tell the players every day, like, you have a chance to either get better or worse when you enter the clubhouse. It's the same thing for me and our staff. I just don't believe in the saying, like, you are who you are. I always feel like there's a chance to get better, and I know that I was not perfect by any means during the season. So you reflect every game, and then when the season ends, then I got my wife telling me all kinds of stuff that I need to get better at, right? So there's always stuff to get better at. But you reflect, and with young guys, pitching moves, position changes, all that stuff, you try to figure out what you could have done better to move the needle even more. There's a lot of reflection.
What was different about the gig as the head guy than maybe we expected? Like, when you got the job a year ago, how did you expect it to be? And now that you're sitting here with, having done it for a full 162, what was different about it?
I didn't know if I could do it. I think that's the biggest one. Until you're a manager, I think there was some nerves and some anxiety to know, like, can I really do this thing? Because you think there's, if you're the bench coach or the first base coach or whatever it is, you could always go back to your hotel room or your house and say, oh man, if I did it, I may have done it a different way, right? But then when you're actually in this seat, it can speed up and it gets fast, and then you have to make the calls, and then you have to talk to you guys after the game about the bad decisions or good decisions, whatever you made, right? So I think so that was the little bit of anxiety going into this position, and so I think this year is like, okay, I feel like I have an idea of how to navigate a game. My staff was phenomenal. I was very fortunate to have a staff around me that covered all my weaknesses and blind spots. And I really do believe that, like, I thought this, and I just told Kelly that I thought being surrounded by good people was the biggest separator. And as far as, like, going through 162, now I'm convinced of it. It's a people business, and when you have 162, you need to be surrounded by people to help you grow and to learn, but also have fun to come to the ballpark every single day. And if I don't have big personalities next to me, it's not fun coming to the ballpark. And I had that. So some things I had to, like, make sure it was real. And then some things I had to convince myself, like, am I actually ready for this position? And so I think year 2 is a little bit different.
Did you have a moment during the season where you realized that you could do it?
I had a couple moments where I thought I couldn't do it, for sure. No, I think... So you have to figure out how to align yourself with front office, analytics, player development, that whole thing, right? And to make sure that you just want to get it right. And whether it's sending a guy with infield in, or if it's a bunt situation and they don't want you to bunt, whatever it is. And I'm not saying they don't want you to, but conversations. And I think in the end, I think it was probably there was St. Louis when we pitched to Arenado. We can talk about that all the time where he walked us off. There's conversations, not just our analytics, but analytically, like you never want to put a guy on. There's also thoughts where like that's Nolan Arenado, right? So like learning from that situation of like, wow, am I ready to talk about that after the game? Because I don't know which is right still. I still don't know, right? I know I don't want Nolan Arenado to beat me, but there's a really hot Contreras behind him, right? Bases loaded, do I want a wild pitch? So certain situations like that where you're trying to figure out, man, am I ready for this or not? And that was like late in the season, right? And there's other times where, yeah, I think I thought I was ready when you're having tough conversations with the guys and then you see them buy in. Whether it was, Jazz in the position change or Louis in the position change or maybe changing the closing role or that type of thing and having those really tough conversations. And then you see them having success when you do move them. I think you're like, all right, they're buying into our message. Maybe I am right for this. So I think there's different situations.
Just keep now with Miller joining the staff, obviously Brownie leading for Seattle, but how much you're like Bill joining you and obviously working together with Maybe.
Yeah, so I knew Bill in my Los Angeles days. He was the special assistant, salt of the earth, really good guy, fits our staff really well. Has no ego in this thing. Our staff, we don't have any ego in this thing. We're just trying to get people better and trying to win baseball games. And I think he fits perfectly. They worked well together in St. Louis. That's important to me because those hitting guys work so many hours together in the same office that if there's any sort of disconnect, it doesn't work. And so there needs to be some flow and the same language also that needs to be delivered to the player, and it can't be just like a million different ideas and then these guys get lost. So that was important. Yeah, Brownie changed the whole offensive mindset, I think, in our organization, and he left it in a better spot. That's the best thing you can say about a coach when he leaves, right? And I think when you do get guys plucked from your staff, I hate it for us, but it's also a win because that means you had success and guys want something from your staff because it was successful and Brownie was successful and I'm happy for him.
Do you think it'll stay similar to philosophy even though he's gone, like with Baber still there, Hart, coming in that foundation at Brown?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a finished product by any means, but I think the game planning was better. It wasn't just one way to hit a baseball anymore. It was, there's everybody its individualized game plans. Brownie was all in. He was great for us. All the minor league side bought in on his philosophy as well. So I don't anticipate it being too different.
With the addition of Miller, would you say the coaching staff is pretty much set for 2024?
Close.
What does that mean?
Close. That's what it means. There's not openings, but you can always add, right? Yeah.
Where would you like to?
In different spots, categories.
What did you learn after year one about what the Marlins' best path is going to be moving forward to continue to contend with the division teams that spend more of the effects? Like, what did you learn about what you guys need to master organizationally to keep up with those types of teams?
I thought what we were really good at is we could pitch. And so we have young pitching still that's coming through. Looking forward to see what Max Meyer brings in 2024 because he was a stud out of college. He was hurt. To see what that looks like, whether I know he's building up as a starter right now, but I'm looking forward to seeing him. A full year of Yuri in the big leagues. I'm looking forward to seeing him. So I think we need to continue to develop high quality starters. And I've heard it a million times. I just said in the interview, you're only as good as your bullpen. A manager is only as good as his bullpen. It really is. And so we had some firepower, some swing and miss in the bullpen with Tanner Scott, acquired Matt Moore, and obviously, Puck and Brazoban and Nardi were a lot of swing and miss. To be sustainable, we got to develop hitters. It's just what it is. We got to develop hitters. We got some young guys that are going to be there for a while, and Berger and Arias and Jazz and Dela. We got some good hitters. But to continue to, fight against, some really big teams in our division, I think developing some hitters that, we can control and can help us, up and down the system, I think that's probably the next step.
Is there anything you could point to about maybe what needs to get done in the minor league system to give yourself a better chance of developing those hitters?
Yeah, I think drafting and developing is the biggest component to that, right? And I think that's Peter's working. Peter has done a really good job in Tampa of acquiring those type of hitters, and you see that roster has a lot of Tampa guys on it, right? That they developed. We don't have that. We don't have a lot of guys that were developed in our system. It's just the reality. So getting to that point is going to be huge for us, and to make this thing sustainable for a long time.
How much have you been able to check in and communicate with your players compared to probably last year being new into the job and getting to know them?
Yeah, so I tell all of our players or our staff to check in after Thanksgiving, give these guys a break. Pipe is the general manager in the DR, so he is checking in with a lot of those guys that are already there or are on their roster already. So I give them quite a break from me and from our staff. They don't want to hear me right now anyways. As much as I love them, they don't want to hear from me right now. So I give them a break after Thanksgiving, and then I'll start talking to them after the winter meetings.
You mentioned Pipe as a GM and Beef as a manager in the same team. So you know the importance of playing winable, but how important is that those two members of your staff being so close and being able to feed you with some information of the guys down there?
Yeah, I mean, they're in first place, so they're obviously doing something right. I mean, they're probably taking my spot here pretty soon if I'm not careful. Yeah, Beef is awesome. We're fortunate to have him his first year managing down there, which is pretty special. And to me, Pipe, I'm not sure how he's not a manager already, so I'm very lucky that he's next to me during the games. But yeah, it's nice to have somebody down there watching players internationally every single day during winter ball. Two guys that are on my staff. So not only some of our players that are on that team, but having conversations with our front office about guys that they like or they see that maybe we could potentially acquire is always nice to have.
Is shortstop kind of open there? Is the team open to bringing Jazz back to the infield by any chance?
I don't see that happening yet. Jazz really took off kind of the second part of the season in the outfield as our center fielder. So I don't anticipate that happening just yet.
You mentioned obviously developing those homegrown hitters until that takes time. How just in the short term, I guess, how do you guys build up that offense as you trade free agency? How many bats do you think you guys need maybe in order to be able to continue competing in the division?
I think that's a Peter question. No, I really like our club. Obviously, we lost Soler. That's a big bat. That is a free agent. I guess we didn't lose him, but he's a free agent. And yeah, I think we have, I guess, one catcher on our roster right now. So I think that's probably a couple bats on the radar of Peter. And Birdie played a really good shortstop when he was there. So I'm sure we're looking for maybe some depth at that position. But right now Birdie would probably get the bulk if it started today. Obviously, with Jazz in center to answer your previous question, but. As far as players are concerned, we're talking through that right now. That's kind of why we're here, and I'm anticipating we're going to sign a couple guys, but until that happens, I can't really say any names.
Also, I'm just curious with compared to last year, you guys kind of made the postseason, this and that. I'm not sure how involved you are, but have you heard the perspective from free agents or maybe teams in terms of wanting, well, not teams, but players wanting to come to the Marlins now that you guys have made a postseason, that you've proven you can win and compete with this
I
foundation?
think Miami's been a destination spot just because it's in Miami. I think a lot of guys want to play there. A lot of families and a lot of players live in South Florida, or in Florida in general, I should say. I think now that that we're relevant, that people would want to come. You hear players that want to come, but in the end they're free agents and they can go wherever they want to go, and most probably go where the money goes. So that's just what free agent is. But if you can convince some players that we can maybe help them, take them to the next step, or they can live at home type thing, I think that's always a good thing for their families or whatever it is. So, to answer your question, I haven't reached out to all these free agents to see if they just want to come over here now.
You mentioned catching. Obviously, it's always tough to evaluate that position, but how would you like the team to address that necessity going forward?
You want a catcher that is a leader, that pitchers love throwing to, that can figure out how guys like Cabrera can throw more strikes, or that Luzardo can now be a Cy Young, or whatever it is, right? And that can hold guys accountable. So that's a big position. It's not just strictly an offensive position to me, because we are so pitching heavy, that you need to be able to throw to a guy that you love throwing to. The offensive part, obviously, we would love to have, but I think having a leader back there that is really, really important. That's done it before.
Your first time at the winter meetings as a manager, is any difference when you come here in the past, if you have been here in the past?
It was
Last year was my first, but I haven't been to the winter meetings before that. Because I honestly didn't really want to go, so I will say that it's been this year and last year is again building relationships over again, right? Last year was like building all these relationships with the front office, and I'm kind of doing it again.
Going off of that, I guess it's not only just the first time everyone's together, but you probably during the season don't have the whole brain trust, I guess, around each other that much, during the season. Like whether it's you and then the front office people, because everyone kind of goes their separate ways.
During the off season, you're saying?
During then the season, like you're probably not all in the same room. Like
Yeah, during the season, I have we have meetings quite often. So yeah, I mean, I would say like the minor leagues and all those guys being the affiliates being here, it's good to catch up. But I also we're constantly talking to coaches up and down the organization and front office. So it's good to see them. Haven't seen them in a couple months, but those conversations happen all the time.
Team's not a finished product, obviously, yet, but just are you already thinking of like, oh, this is where like X could be playing, or this is where Vidal, who we just acquired, this could be where he slots in? Have you already given consideration?
You think about that when you have your roster right before spring training, because you just don't know what pieces are going to come, or potential trades, or however that works. I think acquiring a bunch of really good athletes and really good big leaguers, and then figuring it out after is always a plus. But there's not. I know. I mean, Brujan's playing down the DR. I talk to Pipe about him all the time. I talk to, I know X. I have an idea of where he can play and where he. I think outfield is probably going to be part of the equation as well this year. So, yeah, I mean, you think about your roster, but until like you get that set roster before spring training, a week or two before, that's when you kind of navigate and see, unless there's like a complete position change like we did with Jazz.
I know we touched on it earlier in the offseason, but would you say that Tanner Scott is the closer going into this year?
I mean, Tanner's going to pitch in the highest leverage situations we have. So whether that's if you want to say closer, then that's fine. But we pitched him in the 8th inning and 9th inning last year, and so you lose games in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. It's not just the 9th. So if the meat of the order is in the 8th inning and I need Tanner there, there's a good chance he's going to pitch it, because if I don't use him in the 9th because we just lost in the 8th, then I'll be kicking myself. So I think he's our best pitcher in the bullpen, if that's what you're asking, and he'll probably get the bulk there, but I will use him in spots to get out of big jams or to use in the meat of the order in the 8th inning.
Have you watched Japanese pitchers video this season? For example, Yamamoto, Imanaga.
I have, yeah, I have. I think it's tough not to see, some of the highlights that are going on in Japan or that went on in Japan, and I'm very aware of the talent that's out there, and a very special pitcher who has swing and miss that you just cannot find. It's tough to find, I should say, that has some outlier pitches that are tough to hit, and when you miss bats. There, it's usually translates here as well, and he's going to be very good for a long time.
Skip, Nashville has been brought up as a potential landing spot for an expansion franchise if the league were ever to do that. You haven't spent a ton of time here, but you've played some minor league ball around the state of Tennessee. In your experience, what would make this such a good spot to get a team?
Yeah, I love Nashville. We've been at CMAs. My wife is a huge country fan, so went to CMAs last year. There's stuff to do, obviously, all around Nashville. We loved coming here. I played for the Memphis Redbirds for a number of years, and we came here all the time, and this was a place that you kind of circled on your calendar of like, we can't wait to go to Nashville. I think first of all, the people here are incredible. The fan base, sports fan base here is in Tennessee is really, really good, college and professional. So I think it'd be a destination place that a lot of people would want to come and see a professional team play.
Skip, were you surprised at all with just the D-backs and the Rangers and how the whole playoffs unfolded? And does it give you hope as well that the D-backs, you could be there too, possibly?
I thought it was great for the game. I'm not surprised because it's humans playing humans, and you just never know. Once you get into the playoffs, you just don't know what's going to happen. When you play the Diamondbacks, you know how hard they are to play against and to game plan against because of the platoon situations that they have. They can beat you with speed. They have two aces on the mound with Kelly and Zach. So it wasn't surprising because of how well they were coached. The firepower that the Texas Rangers had, it wasn't surprising. They kicked our butt in Arlington this year, so that was not surprising at all to see them. But it's the hottest teams usually in October, and also not surprised because Arizona was a good team. So I don't want people to think that like, oh man, I can't believe Arizona they were a good team, and really well coached. So it wasn't surprising at all. Other than like, I thought Philly was just so good. But either one of those teams making it was really good for baseball, and happy for them. Good. All right.